Deadpool and Wolverine's maximum effort pays off big at the box office, but other movies are showing up too. The Acolyte will not get a season 2. There's a new Kraven the Hunter trailer, and we talk about the Bo DeMeo situation. All that and more right after this. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's Matthew Carroll, and with me on the panel today we have J. Scotty St. Clair. What's happening, J. Scotty?
Not too much. Feeling right as rain over here.
Sweet.
How about you?
Good. I'm good, man. And how about you, Haley Hobbs?
Work has been working me over these last 2 days, so I'm glad to be here in the multiverse of make-believe, talking about news.
Yeah. Take a break. And Jay Sisson, what's going on, bud?
Yeah, it's good to be back. Happy to have Jeff here last week holding down the fort, and but it's always good to make a return to Multiverse News. It's a staple part of the week.
Yeah, yes, it is. I feel so in some ways like this is the only stable thing I have in my week. Everything else is shifting. So
like it's crumbling all around me.
Yeah, this is the anchor appointment or whatever that keeps my life together from unraveling a la Deadpool and Wolverine. To start off, we always like to read a 5-star review from Apple Podcasts. User Ted Bundy says, truly grateful to be on the same timeline as this great podcast. I look forward to feeling like a fly on the wall every week, listening to 4 friends talk shop about the hottest news in our favorite fictional worlds. If the multiverse cast were ever to be pruned and sent to the void, I hope to be pruned along with them, because a timeline without this cast is no longer a timeline worth saving. Into the forever and beautiful sky, Ian R. That's
very well done.
Very poetic, Ian. Thank you.
Chock full of references, which I appreciate.
Yeah, what's the into the forever and beautiful sky?
Rocket and Lila in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
That's right. Oh my gosh, I couldn't. Yeah,
That's a tearjerker one, Ian.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it is.
But mad respect.
Yes, good call. I can't believe I feel my MCU card should be revoked for that one. Well, are you guys ready to dive into some news?
So
Yeah,
Dive
let's
on
do
in.
it.
Let's do it. The Merc with the Mouth and Logan have officially taken the title of highest grossing R-rated movie of all time, with Deadpool and Wolverine barely edging out 2019's Joker for that honor. As of this recording, the MCU romp has accumulated $1.14 billion, and while that's a tough ticket to beat, other late summer movies are tracking for big openings as well, with Alien Romulus debuting globally at more than $180 million, and Tim Burton's sequel Beetlejuice Beetlejuice eyeing a potential $80 million opening, which would make it the biggest September opening of all time. It appears to be all fun and games and aliens at the box office, doesn't it?
I'm having a good time. I was fortunate enough to see Alien Romulus this weekend, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think, whether you're a long-lived fan of that franchise or it's your first entry, if you have an interest in sci-fi horror, I think this is a great entry point, and I think you'll be entertained. So, obviously, kudos to Deadpool and Wolverine. It has been an absolute juggernaut, no pun intended there. And, it's... I think it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to make it to $1 billion, but the fact that it's done it as quickly as it has, I can't help but think about Oppenheimer last year. It greatly benefited from the Barbenheimer conversation there, but even Barbie, while it was Barbie PG-13 probably, not R, but it still took significantly longer to break that $1 billion threshold than Deadpool and Wolverine did here. So we've come a long way from September being relegated as one of the quote-unquote dump months. It was September and February, and now we're talking about, some of the most anticipated films of the year coming out in September and records being broken. So I think, with high-profile projects like Beetlejuice in conjunction with kind of the start of the awards season, we're going to see some of these smaller, low-budget films trickle in towards the end of September. I, for one, it's funny, thinking back on the summer box office and looking back at May, how it really did feel like doom and gloom, and we just didn't know what was going to hit and what wasn't. So,
Yeah.
My hope is that we're maybe going to see Hollywood respond to this, and there won't be as much of a glut in early May. Like I think back around 2018, it was like we had Infinity War, Deadpool 2, and Solo all coming out around the same time. And people's reception to Solo is, it is what it is. But I, for one, think that movie probably would have been a lot more successful if there wasn't so much competition at the box office. So I'm hoping Hollywood learns some lessons here and we see things spread out a little bit more throughout the year. But yeah, it's all looking good to me. I loved Alien Romulus. I love the stuff that's coming out, and I love seeing the box office be so successful. It makes a cinephile like me, it makes my heart flutter.
I was really impressed by Alien Romulus from a marketing perspective. Like, I thought that the film did a great job at pitching itself as an entry point, like you said, and I feel like that really came out in the trailers and the TV spots. I personally didn't go see it, but I have talked to a lot of people who never saw Alien, or maybe they saw Alien, but they haven't really seen anything since. Like, they haven't really kept up with all of the other random timeline order of movies and the deep lore that's been created in that universe. But they were all of a sudden interested in Alien Romulus. It's got a fresh cast, fresh faces. It's sort of marketing itself as like, you do not have to have seen anything else to come in here and see this. And that really worked. Like, this was above expectations. It shows a healthy box office, especially a healthy summer box office. And I mean, all of us here are going to be happy about that. But at the end of the day, I think it's also showing us that despite the fact that franchises still rule the box office, which they do, there is still a movement with a lot of these movies to like try to separate it a little bit from the franchise. You don't have had to see this to see this. You can still come to the theater and have a good time and see this. It's standalone. You don't have to have all of the research. And it seemed like movies weren't really going that way maybe 3-4 years ago. It seems like maybe franchises were the only things that would be in theaters. But now there does seem to be a little bit of that shift as like, how can we stand this thing out? Bring in new fans, bring new people to the property, and Alien's a really good example of how that's happened. And to address Deadpool breaking $1 billion, elephant in the room, yes, it did. And I will, for one, say that I'm thrilled for that. I'm happy that movie has done so well. I sort of anticipated that it would do what Oppenheimer did, kind of in that ballpark, which would still be great. But man, it's really exceeded expectations. And now the top 5 highest grossing R-rated movies of all time, 3 of the 5 are Deadpool. Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2, and Deadpool 3, with Oppenheimer, and then obviously Joker worked in there too. So an immensely successful run for a Marvel movie, which is something we just haven't really seen in a while. So that's really cool to see. And I hope that what this means is that Marvel sees that, maybe there is a little bit of room to let creators experiment and do some fun things and kind of push the limits of what Marvel movies can be in theaters a little bit, and do something a little bit more different. So there's obviously an appetite for it, and yeah, it's gonna keep cashing in. It's gonna keep cashing in every weekend. So it's exciting times to be a fan of the box office.
Yeah, there's not a lot more to say, in my opinion. Because I'm a data-driven person, I'm very curious to see how the rest of the year goes still, which is what I've been saying. Will November, with all of its blockbusters, maintain this trajectory that summer has brought us? I have no idea, because I feel like spring and early summer didn't do this, and this late summer stuff is just hitting really hard. So I'm going to be interested to see how the rest of the year plays out. I'm excited for all of these movies. Jay, you said that these movies are like part of a franchise, but they're able to kind of speak to a wide audience, and I think that's the most important thing. Back when we were talking about our franchises dead, I think needing all that interconnectivity maybe was making them dead for an audience perspective. Like, well, I don't want to have to see all of these things. And with something like Alien Romulus, where you can go in probably without a lot of prior knowledge about the original movie and about the other things, and probably the same is going to be the case for Beetlejuice. I think it's that very delicate balance that we're always talking about filmmakers having to strike.
I am a vibes person. I'm not data driven at all. And that's why I called it last week. The box office is back, baby. Box office is back. I don't care what you guys say. It's back. I actually have
None of us are saying it's not.
I'm just teasing. You're saying wait and see. I'm just saying.
I'm a wait and see person.
I know, and I'm a vibes person who called it a week ago. The box office is back. Sorry, I'm just being obnoxious. But no, I actually have not to get political. But another thing that I think
here we go.
might be affecting this, and I don't know. But just seeing this tracking is wild. I can't believe Beetlejuice is looking as good as it's looking. I would not expect that. We were kind of in this like trough over the last few years of like COVID, of course, had a big problem. I just think we've been in a place as a society, definitely in our country and probably around the world, of sort of like there's a lot of looming darkness in the world. COVID was a big part of that, but also like economic issues, political turmoil, all this stuff. And I do think there's been a number of like political shifts in the world, not just in America, but in other parts of the world, that like big political shifts have happened. I have had a hard time, and this is me, the MCU guy, like I've had a hard time when things were looking particularly bleak politically 3 or 4 months ago. I was having a really hard time finding it in myself to care about the fictional universes I loved because I was worried about the real world. Like it's really hard to hit that. Like sometimes you need it, but it's kind of hard. I talked about it when we talked about Deadpool and Wolverine on MCU Cast. That was one of the first times I sat down, and that first opening scene like took me out of myself in a way I hadn't experienced in a while, because it's been really hard for me to leave my body I like the world has felt dark and gloomy, and like a lot of the shifts going on in the world right now are feeling brighter and more hopeful. And I wonder if that might have something to do with people going back to see a movie over and over, because it's like I can invest my time in something because I'm not worried about, there's not as much dread going on right now. That's how I feel anyway.
So a lot of big movies on the horizon this year too. I mean, we've got Moana 2, we've got Gladiator 2, you've got Wicked, you mentioned Beetlejuice, you've got like the Bob Dylan movie coming around Christmas time. Like, I mean, there's still a lot of big stuff on the horizon here too, and that'll help write the rest of the story of this summer box office and continuing into the winter and fall and winter box office. But I'm expecting all those movies to do very well when the time comes.
Yeah, I think it's a confluence of a lot of things that we've talked about, and it does seem like these movies that I feel like if Beetlejuice came out 3 years ago, it would have been one of those movies that we go like, ooh, can't believe they tried to dust that one off, like it didn't work, because it's impossible to catch that 80s magic again, or 90s magic. I don't know when the first Beetlejuice came out, but it feels right now like movies that I wouldn't expect to do this well over the last few years are really doing well, or at least tracking to do really well. So Alien Romulus, 180 million is a lot for an alien movie.
Yeah.
That's a lot, especially for like I don't know, I guess maybe not. I was going to say especially for a new entry point in the series, but like maybe that's why it's doing well.
I think it's a little bit of an example of counter programming as well. While Deadpool is still kind of the king of the box office, I know, what was that, Blake Lively, It Ends With Us or something like that? That did surprisingly well. So we didn't talk about it on the show, but there was a point in time What's that?
It's very controversial.
Oh, is it? I don't know anything about it outside.
Oh my gosh, the press around it has been wild.
Oh, has it? Oh, I don't. I'm ignorant. Yeah. I'm ignorant to this, but yeah. It was just I did not expect it to do as well as it did. It was like a rom-com based on a book, like.
Yeah, except it's not a rom-com. We'll talk off air.
Okay.
Colleen Hoover joint.
That book is very popular.
Clearly, I'm ignorant. So.
No, you're not. It's just
Blake Lively's like, thank you for not talking about it.
She's like, I'm so glad you don't know.
Stay under your rock.
Scotty doesn't know.
Good boy.
Scotty doesn't know.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Hilarious.
Scotty doesn't know that It Ends With Us is actually really controversial.
It's really good. It was really good, Scoots.
Here till Thursday. Try the veal.
All right, up next, Lucasfilm announced Tuesday that this year's new show, The Acolyte, will not receive a second season. The show was incredibly divisive among fans, though critically was well received. Showrunner Leslye Headland had pitched ideas for a second season, but those will not come to fruition now. What does it take to have success in a galaxy far, far away?
The Mandalorian and Grogu are successful in the galaxy far, far away. I was incredibly bummed, of course, to see that The Acolyte wasn't getting a second season. The cancellation was just as divisive as the show itself, because people were coming for people who liked it, and let's just not do that. That's my PSA for the day. Let people just feel their feelings and don't be mean about it. But yeah, this isn't really a surprise. Like, I can be objective and say that the fan critique around this show makes this not a surprise for me. I was hoping Lucasfilm would do it just out of spite, you know? I mean, like, why not? What better reason to have a second show of a season of a show? No, I'm kind of kidding, like 80% for real, but I don't know. There were just so many cool things that could have been explored. It doesn't mean they won't be, by any means. They could do a spin-off animated series or, like, shorts, like they've been doing with Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Sith, or whatever it was. I totally forget right now. They could do more books. We know we're getting written material about the Acolyte. They could expand on that. There's a lot of ways to continue the story, even though it won't be live action, and I can very much see Lucasfilm doing that, even though it is still a bummer not to get the rest of the story.
I just want to come out and apologize because I feel like it was the release of our Patreon exclusive about how bad
it was tangent talk. Yeah, that's what
our
did it.
reach
That was
is
the nail in the
further than
coffin.
you know.
Yeah. And I'm really sorry because I didn't mean to kill the show, but I did.
Wow.
And I apologize.
Now, I come from a similar place as you, Haley. This does really make me sad and kind of bums me out. And I think what bothers me most about the situation is that it's like a repeating pattern for Star Wars where I feel like they're becoming increasingly reactive, where we saw DC do the same thing, and I think Marvel's, falling victim to that as well. But it just sucks because I think The Acolyte, I enjoyed it, but it did have some issues. I think there were some issues with the execution. So there's a section of the fan base that has some legitimate concerns and issues with this show, but that's all being drowned out once again by this just loud vocal minority that their issues with the show are coming from all the wrong places. They were dead set against it from day one because it was, female led, focusing on female characters, doing some things to challenge the mythos of Star Wars as we know it in the role of the Jedi. And it reminds me a lot of The Last Jedi, where, that's not my favorite Star Wars movie. I have some issues with some of the choices they made there, but I enjoyed it for what it was. And it just sucks that everything has to be so high stakes in the Star Wars universe and fandom. Like, they don't get the chance to take these big swings and chances because everybody complains that, hey, Star Wars feels small. We want to go outside of the Skywalkers in that saga. But every time they do it, we get this, again, vocal minority just banging this drum and creating divisiveness in the conversation in the wrong light. So I don't envy anybody at Lucasfilm right now, most of all Kathleen Kennedy. It just kind of sucks. Again, there were some issues with the story, but I think they set up a lot of things that season 2 would fulfill the promise of. I was really interested to see where that story was going. So it's just, I'm concerned for the future of Star Wars at this point. If they're going to keep responding to volatile fans like this, it actually kind of reminds me of the Snyder Cut as well. Like, I love the fact that the Snyder Cut came out and I was grateful to watch it, but I never thought it was going to happen. When that campaign first started, I was like, there's no way a studio will ever give in to the demands of petulant fans. And when they did, I thought it set a dangerous precedent. So, social media and being actively online all the time comes with its benefits, but it also comes with its detriments. And I think this is one where it's just like, hey, shut up for a second and let them cook. And that even goes to, the Marvel Studios thing, all those, belly achers about anchor beings. I'm looking at you.
Oh, anchor beings is terrible.
Shut up and let them cook.
Conceit.
Just let them see what they do. See what they do with it.
Sassy Scotty. So here
Of course,
for
that's
it.
all tongue in cheek. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. Let them cook.
Yeah.
And if they've got a great idea for anchor beings, I'm down. But I just don't logically, I don't like it.
Sure.
But that's what I'm so mad about this, because this was one of the more interesting Star Wars shows I've seen. I love this. I really, really loved it. But it just had a few moments that are terrible.
Sure.
And that really are like big plot holes to me that don't, and we talked about it on our tangent talk, but like, I didn't mean I wasn't interested in more story. It makes me mad on multiple levels, because I really hate I hate the like bad faith actors who come in and hate it just because it's female led or because it's minority led or whatever. Like, that's stupid. And I hate that. But then I also hate it when people have amazing resources and like all of the, like, everything's going for them. They've got the galaxy far, far away. They've got all the resources of Lucasfilm, and then they make a few weird writing decisions that, like, derail it for people. And so then you get this weird alliance of people who are bad faith and people who are just good faith. Like, that made no sense. Why did you do that? Can you I kind of hate that part of it, even though the show's good otherwise. And so it's like you get this alliance between these sides, and then you get a lot of yelling at the show. It's not fair, because it's like it's this thing of, like, I guess any show has to be bulletproof in a way, but, like, shows that are female led and minority led have to be more bulletproof, because they've already got that some hate coming from one quarter. And so it puts you in this awkward position, especially as a commentator, like we are. Like, I don't like shitting on a show that is trying new things and pushing new boundaries, both in the real world and in the fictional world. I love that they're doing new things, but I also don't want to be dishonest when I see something that I really, really dislike. So I don't like being allied with people who are so bad faith and who are in it for the wrong reasons, but also there are parts of that show I hate. So it's like I'm part of that chorus, but also I'm part of the chorus saying, like, I wanted more, because I think a few of the characters on that show are so interesting, and the actor who I'm forgetting his name, but
Manny Jacinto.
Yes, Manny Jacinto, amazing. I love him on other things, but in this he, like, pulled out a level and a gear that I didn't know he had, and I just think he was amazing, and I wanted to see more from him. Particularly we didn't get to know much about his character, and I loved the, like, mystery of that. It's really, really disappointing.
Yeah, it was such a weird place for a show to be in from the beginning, because it had a lot of the Star Wars baggage that just comes with being a Star Wars property, which we've already sort of rehashed here what that means. But it's got the big budget, it's got the Disney Plus primetime spot, it's got all of these things that it has to carry. And then you can't run from what we've talked about, which is that it did start out of the gate with a lot of really negative attention from people. I mean, it was, you see the review bombs, you search it on Twitter, you see everything's extremely polarizing. It's extremely one way or extremely the other. And so it already had a lot of hurdles it had to jump. And then on top of that, it never peaked in the Nielsen ratings. It trended every week, like people were talking about it, but there weren't really a lot of people watching it out of the gate. And so it's like when you put all those factors together, it is just from a purely numbers standpoint, it's sort of a no-brainer for Lucasfilm. But again, like, as someone who watched that show, and I wasn't necessarily crazy about it. There were a few episodes that just really lost me. But overall, like, I'm in the same boat as you guys. I saw the end, and I was interested in sort of seeing what the next step of the show could be, and seeing how they could explore some of the ends that they had opened up in season 1. But ultimately, it's kind of one of those things. We're just sort of left at a point where it's like, well, this is kind of where we're at with it. It's not something that's going to happen, and that's very unfortunate. But I like what you said, just kind of bringing it back to something positive, Haley. I mean, I think, like, we probably will see this world explored a lot more. We know that the High Republic has been explored a lot through print. I love the call of an animated series, but, like, print, I think, has a very bright future for some of these characters in the Acolyte. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of these characters explored again in that form or in that medium. But yeah, it's if that was a show that you really liked, it's definitely unfortunate and I think it raises a lot of questions about what the future of Lucasfilm TV looks like, and what properties get put out there and which ones don't, and just what that charting that ship is going to look like. This is going to be a lesson in the story of what that trajectory for Lucasfilm is going to be.
All right, up next, Sony Pictures released an extended look at their upcoming Spider-Man villain movie, Kraven the Hunter. The movie releases December 13th and has a star-studded cast featuring Russell Crowe and Ariana DeBose, with Aaron Taylor-Johnson in the titular role. The new promo provided a slightly longer look at the Rhino, played by Alessandro Nivola, who has the hot take on what Sony's doing with Kraven.
I don't know if it's a hot take, but credit where
Make
credit
it
is
hot,
due.
Jay Scotty. Make it hot.
It's
Of
spicy.
the two trailers we have for upcoming entries in the Spider-Man-less Sonyverse, I will say this is the better of the two trailers, and I still think they have a turd on their hands, but they are polishing the hell out of that turd, and they're making it look as shiny as they can. So I was actually surprised to see online some of like the positive reception to the trailer. People were like, "Oh, this is it. This is what they're doing with it." So I wasn't entirely convinced by putting playing Johnny Cash in the background or anything like that, but I think they're leaning into what they need to lean into in terms of like, we already heard that this thing was going to get an R rating. It was going to be pretty violent and pretty gory. And we got to see some of that showcase. So as far as the Rhino goes, I'm open to new interpretations. I think the VFX still need a little bit of work before I'm entirely convinced there. But yeah, the jury's still out on this one. I'll go and check it out. I don't think it's going to get lambasted the same way Madam Web or even Morbius got lambasted, but I still don't think it's going to be a great movie. But in terms of marketing, they're doing a stand-up job here. I think the one thing that does not land very well for me is the tagline, "Villains aren't born, they're made."
How dare you steal my thunder, Scotty?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's true, but it's just like, that's weak. Get out of here. Go back and try again.
Yeah.
It's the most generic ChatGPT generated
Yeah.
tagline that a movie has ever had in the history of movie making.
It was 4:30 on a Friday, and they were like, "We got to come up with a tagline for this movie." And they were like, "How about villains aren't born, they're made?" All right, let's go home. See you guys.
That's
Fuck
fire.
out.
That's fire.
This trailer was completely different from the first one, which people really didn't like at all.
Yeah.
And so I'll give them props for making the pivot to make something that at least people were like, yeah, this looks serviceable, which isn't the best thing you want people to say about your movie, but you take what you can get when you're Sony making these Spider-Man villain movies that don't connect to Spider-Man because they can't, because it's bizarre. But the tagline just made me laugh out loud that day. I'm not even going to lie. And then the Johnny Cash, like when the man comes around, it's like, I see what you're trying to do, but is that going to get people into the theaters to see your Kraven the Hunter movie? Like, I don't know. It feels like it's going to be a mess. They didn't touch the whole blood thing in this one because people hated that, but that's still going to be in the movie. And I think it might be people going to see it and then coming out like, that's not the movie I thought I was going to see.
What's the blood thing?
They showed in the first trailer that he gets his powers from being, like mauled by a lion or something.
Yeah, he gets a blood
It's
transfusion with a
terrible.
lion.
It's the equivalent of my
Interesting.
mom was studying spiders in Peru line from Madam
Okay.
Web.
Oh, no,
Okay.
nothing will ever be that level.
Oh my god. Come on now.
I'm just not psyched for another Spider-Man villain movie with no Spider-Man that will try to reference Spider-Man, but will do it on the periphery of what it's allowed to do. And then at the end, we'll be like, oh yeah, you want to see this guy with other villains? And they'll pull in like Morbius or something, or they'll pull in like, I don't know, some rando from the Sonyverse,
man.
and they'll be like, see,
Your
it's
lips to
all
God's
coming
ears.
together. And it's just like, maybe we're not as excited about this as maybe you're projecting that we will be. Like, maybe I don't want to see these characters together. And maybe, like, unless it's going somewhere, the rest of the world doesn't either. I don't know. It's just like, we know it at this point. Like, we know it's not ending. They tried to do it with Venom. They said, hey, this is going to end up with Spider-Man. Look, he's in the same universe, and now he's dropped off the symbiote. Like, they're dancing around each other, but they never got there. And now we're getting the last Venom movie. And then they did this weird thing with bringing Vulture in to meet Morbius, which was always bizarre. And now it's like, okay, Kraven now too? Like, where's he going to go? And it just feels aimless to me. Like, it feels like making it up as you go along, not really having a plan, having no plan to have Spider-Man come into this whole thing. And I think people are just done with it. Like, I think people are just sort of like over that idea at this point.
I've been saying for years, one thing... First off, I think this trailer looks great. Looks awesome. I think it looks great. But I really like the first trailer, so I'm in the minority there. I thought the first trailer looked really good. I think it's got interesting themes of like what makes a villain, and I'm down for like just an exploration of that, whether it connects to anything else at all. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson looks awesome. he's always good in everything he's in, and Russell Crowe being a father, but also clearly being an antagonist of some sort. I think that's gonna like sort of that pushing against your father and not wanting to be him, but becoming him according to his brother, I guess that was. I think that all is great. I love it. It feels Shakespearean. It feels cool. It all looks good. And the violence, I feel like a lot of the positive reaction online is the violence. People love a good violent comic book movie, and this one's going full R with like the bear trap to the face kind of stuff. And I think people are going to love that. I could care less. I don't care too much about that. But I think it looks good though. I think I really do. But I've been saying for years the one thing that could save this universe is bringing Andrew Garfield in. Like just have Andrew Garfield show up in one of these movies and connect it in and make him the Spider-Man of this universe. And now they have ruined that by bringing Rhino in, because that's not the Rhino from Andrew Garfield's universe. And so it ruins my whole plan of fixing this universe by bringing in
You really
Andrew
want to
Garfield.
see that Paul Giamatti Rhino again? Because I don't.
No, I don't. But I didn't want them to use something that would disconnect it. I don't know. Maybe there's two rhinos. Maybe there's, who knows?
And I hear you, and I think like a movie that stands on its own, that is made about a complicated character, can be great. But I just know that they're not thinking that. I know they're thinking, how can we connect this to everything else? And there will be some kind of post-credit scene where they try to have him and the Rhino, and I bet his brother ends up being the chameleon or whatever, like in the comics. Like all these guys are going to get together. All these guys are going to get together at the end. I just know they're going to do that. And I'm just not buying it anymore. Like, I'm not there with it. Like, have fun meeting up or whatever. But, like, if you're not going to tell me a self-contained story, I'm just not that interested.
That's a really good call. They probably are going to go that direction. You'll probably see the chameleon. You'll probably see the jackal. And more than likely, depending on his contract, you probably will see Michael Keaton's Vulture come back based on his recent comments around the unreleased Batgirl movie. He said it was a fun time and a good check. So yeah, that kind of shows what he's down for there. But honestly,
I have so much respect for him.
Right.
so much. I have like peak level. That's not even sarcastic. I'm being dead serious. Like, I have so much respect for him.
It's being real. But I think the best thing they could do in a post-credit scene is connect it to the animated verse. I know this is an R-rated entry that we're talking about, but if you have Kraven like undergo that transformation, like step through a portal and come out on the other side, animated or whatever, like that's the way you take it. That's the way you salvage this universe, in my opinion.
You mean the Spider-Verse?
Yeah, the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
Interesting. You would have them sully the Spider-Verse with weird Sony villain characters?
The Spider-Verse is so good that it doesn't get sullied. It just,
it elevates everything around it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hear that. All right. Well, let me just say, last thing. I hope they connect it all. I hope they do. I hope they do it similar to what they did in Morbius, which, like, Morbius, it was good in places. It was terrible in places. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. But it was a self-contained story. It just ended with that classic, like, it was a little heavy-handed for sure. Cause he's like, hey, the Vulture just popped into our universe.
Oh, what are you doing here?
How did Something to do with Spider-Man.
Yeah. By the way, you missed an opportunity to say it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was Morbin time, and you didn't.
You're right, man. I'm not meme friendly enough. Very good. But no, I one of my favorite things about that whole Sony thing is the fact that Lord and Miller's second Spider-Verse movie fixes the flaw of Morbius, where like a random villain pops into that universe, because we were all having to assume that it was the No Way Home spell, but the second freaking Spider-Verse movie showed us that random villains are popping around the timeline, which is why that happened. Really, I love that. I love it so much. It's so good. But that's Lord Miller for you, and they tricked me into thinking that I was gonna like the next thing, and then Madam Web happened. Anyway, yeah, I do. I hope that like we get a post credit scene and like Madam Web is hanging out with Morbius and
do you?
And Vulture.
That will so not happen.
It's not going to be
Dakota Johnson is like, absolutely not.
Yeah, if they were betting odds, like if they were like, on who would show up, like Madam Web would be the very bottom. Like, you're never seeing
they'd be
those
like,
characters
Sydney, come back.
again.
Sydney Sweeney.
Yes, just Sydney Sweeney.
No,
please
if I'm
come back.
Sydney Sweeney's agent and Sony calls me, I'm not even picking up the phone.
Right.
Like sending them straight to voicemail.
And that's the thing, I did not just Sydney Sweeney, but all three of the other actresses in that movie I thought did great. But it was just such a terrible movie. Okay, up next, we'll move on. I'll just.
It's time. It's time to move on.
I'm gonna hurt my credibility.
If we get stuck in the Sonyverse, there's no coming out.
Aren't we? They're even like, okay, we're going to use When the Man Comes Around because you like that better, right?
We were talking about Dawn of the Dead before we started the show, and I think that's in Dawn of the Dead. I think that's like, or no, is it one of the zombie movies that is like the big? I think that's it. I think it's Dawn of the Dead. There's the big action sequence at the beginning, and then the thing that shows the world fall of the world is that song. I think that's the first time I'd ever heard that song, which was like whatever 20 years ago.
And I was thinking about how the trailer for Logan incorporated Johnny Cash's cover of "Hurt" by Nine Inch Nails.
Oh,
much more effectively.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, up next, it's the story that dominated the Marvel fandom last week when Beau DeMayo claimed his credit will be removed from Season 2 because he shared fan art for Gay Pride in June. DeMayo cited this as, quote, the latest in a troubling pattern I suffered through while working on X-Men 97 and Blade. Marvel quickly released a statement responding to DeMayo's claim that it was his behavior called egregious in the statement, which was the cause of his loss of credit as well as his termination. Sources following these statements claimed that an agreement had been reached regarding social media around X-Men 97, and DeMayo had breached that contract. Other sources claim DeMayo's termination was due to sexual misconduct, though no internal reviews have surfaced. We're here to discuss the facts as we know them, which is very little, really, what we know. And who wants to go first?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. You kind of have to separate things with a story like this, especially this early, where we're really at the beginning of this. We're probably at the beginning of a story that will last over some lawsuits and some more tabloid headlines and some more information. And where we are right now, you kind of have to bucket the information into what did Beau DeMayo say happened, what did Disney say happened, and then what do scoopers / insiders / people who aren't official say that they're hearing what happened. And understanding that within those three things, the first two are the only ones that we know for sure that we can confirm, right? Because we've heard it from someone. So we do know, like you said, Beau DeMayo, he says that he was let go from Disney, and we know he was let go in March. But we're focusing more on the writing credit for season 2. And his statement, like you said, is that he posted an image that had to do with gay pride, and that was why, in his mind, he was let go. And so Disney responded and said,
a quick aside. That's not what the post said. We thought that too. We talked about this on MCU Cast, and we talked about it like that for 20 minutes, and the post just says, this image is why my credits were removed. That image is from June of this year, so he couldn't have been fired for it. So like a lot of people online are talking about him being fired for that image. That's not true. He never even claimed that.
Right,
He's saying his credits were taken because of the image, which, but he's not even saying why he was fired. He's just saying it's like a part of this whole
troubling narrative
or whatever he says. We have the words written here.
Troubling pattern.
Yeah, troubling pattern.
Well, and he was, it should be known too that like before June, like he was playing pretty nice. I mean, he was tweeting about X-Men 97, only positive things. He was not publicly lashing out against Disney. Like there was seemingly no bad blood publicly, at least, between these two parties. But then, the whole thing happened with the removal of the writing credits. I think the Emmys had a big issue. There was an issue there too, because he was not invited to the Emmys, and he made that known that was an issue that he had, was that he was not invited to the Emmys. Disney coming out and saying that it was egregious behavior, it's clear what their sort of stance is, that they have conducted an internal investigation. They let him go immediately. They don't want him to be associated with a show that's still ongoing, so they don't want him to be at the Emmys associated with a show that's still happening if they don't believe that he reflects what they want from their company. So there's then the other side of it, which is you have the insiders and you have the people who are hearing things and you have the rumors and the leaks and all those things. And with those, I mean, I think it's best that, we keep them general. It's like sexual misconduct seems to be the thing across the board. But again, it's all from people who aren't official. And it's kind of one of those things, like you want to let people tell their own stories if they want to tell their own stories. You don't want to get in and start breaking stuff if people aren't ready to talk about it. And you don't want to start questioning people who aren't ready to talk about it and everything like that. So ultimately, like, there's NDAs on NDAs here that both sides are saying that they violated. Disney's saying you violated it because you posted about X-Men 97. He's saying the NDA was illegal in the first place and I can't be held to it. And that's where, if this goes to court, that's what it's going to be over. It's going to be over this idea of the non-disclosure agreements that were signed. And man, like, I don't know. I don't know what kind of case exists here for Beau DeMaio. Like, I don't really, at least from the outside, it kind of seems like he might be sort of stepping in it a little bit. Like, I don't know. It just seems like from the outside, it's like, hey, like he got let go from the show for something that Disney, conducted an internal investigation, let him go immediately. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're going to turn around and say, well, actually, I have an issue with this writing credit thing, and you're going to bring that up, and then now all of a sudden it's going to open the Pandora's box type thing. It's going to open the conversation and the investigation and all this type of stuff. Like, it seemed like there was an agreement there, like, we won't tell anyone why we fired you, and in return, you won't associate yourself with the show, and we'll play nice. But that's kind of gone now, and it's like, now we're asking questions like, well, why were you fired? And why was there an internal investigation? What does the internal investigation say? Like, we're asking questions we weren't asking before, really? And it's just like, now it's snowballing, and it's become this bigger narrative where, you've got Jeff Snyder out there saying, like, I'm talking to all these people, and they're telling me he was sending photos to people unprompted that were, of him nude and all this stuff. And it's just like, then you've got, you're going up to writers on the show, asking them about it. And it's just like, it's sullying the show and the people who worked on it and all. And it's opened up this, like, really complicated conversation around this whole thing where, again, we're at the beginning of it. There's still a lot more probably to come out and potentially lawsuits. And right now it's just, we're on this like messy sort of beginning of the whole thing and we'll probably be hearing about it for off and on for a long time, I would imagine, especially if it ends up going to court.
Yeah. The initial, splash was DeMaio's post. And if you know how companies the size of Disney work, you kind of immediately go, that seems not quite like something that they would do. Not for that reason. Especially given the nature of X-Men 97 and the X-Men characters themselves. And knowing how instrumental DeMaio's writing was for the show. So that being cited as, the credit strip reason, it just didn't make sense, right? And so then you wait and more stuff comes out and it's like, oh, there's a lot more going on here than we will probably ever know, and that's okay with me, quite frankly. I wonder, just like a personal thing, did he feel bolstered by support from fans who really enjoyed the show, and rightfully so, because it was so well done, and feel like maybe he had a leg to stand on? Perhaps. Who knows? We don't know what prompted this, Jay, you called it earlier, extremely litigious move. So we'll see. It's a shame all around for all of the parties, for everything that's going on. It will continue.
Yeah, Haley, I think you hit the nail right on the head in terms of Beau DeMaio being bolstered by the reception to that first season of X-Men 97. And this may be a surprise to the listeners, but in my personal life, I don't like drama. So on the surface, I don't want to touch this thing with a 39.5-foot pole. But treading lightly because we don't have all the full details. All that being said, looking at the timeline of events and people's reactions and who chooses to say what first, I, for one, think I can pretty confidently say that, 9 times out of 10, I would side with, the individual versus the big corporation. But I think in this example, I do think this is a case of Bo getting a little big for his britches. Jay, to your point, initially he was more than happy to keep quiet. Like, I remember a couple months back, I was like, I want to know what Bo DeMaio did, and now it's just like, I kind of wish I didn't.
Don't.
Yeah, like everyone was happy, Disney was happy, Bo was happy to just keep quiet, enjoy the success of this show, chime in here and there where you can. But at some point, his name became ubiquitous with X-Men 97 and the success of that franchise. So even as we started to talk about season 2 and season 3 and bringing in Matthew Chauncey and new writers to change his thing, people started to bristle against that, myself included. And I think he just took that hype and energy and kind of rode with it and got a little full of himself. And, he kind of called Disney's bluff, and they said, all right, you want to fight? Disney doesn't play. We'll put this out there. We'll let people know, not the exact details of what you did, but what you did. And I do think back, even when we first started talking about his firing, a lot of people have come out from his work on The Witcher and cited problematic behavior there as well. So it sounds like it's just, I believe Bo when he says that he needs to take a break from social media and focus on his mental health. I probably, this form of self-sabotage does feel like someone that's like probably, hey, you need to talk to someone, you need to vent this somewhere else other than the online space where you're going to incur all this wrath. So, if I was a writer and I wrote a headline for this thing, give me crap if you want, but I probably would have titled it Cinco de Mayo, Sinko, because that's what it feels like. It feels like he's just like, burning all the bridges that he has. And like, had he stayed quiet and just let things like, smooth over doesn't seem like the right word, but if things had just run their course, he probably could have lined himself up with a pretty nice job and had a lot of attention, a lot of fan favor going for him. But I think when, push comes to shove and everything comes to light, he's going to be on the losing side of this. And I think that's unfortunate. I hope it just doesn't impact the reception to X-Men 97 going forward, because I do think that first season was absolutely wonderful, and I'm excited for the future of it. And I hope, even with Bo's, suspected or alleged problematic behavior here, I hope that his vision and influence can still be respected despite, this really ugly situation.
Well, and something that speaks to me too is that typically when someone in a high-profile situation like this, who's in charge of a property, gets fired for something, and especially if it's like not for a reason that deserves to be fired, the people come out and support the person. Like, they come out and they defend them. I mean, think about whenever they came for James Gunn, right, during Guardians, and the whole cast of Guardians was like, we will quit, we will leave if you fire James Gunn, and they brought him back. Think about when Snyder was let go and they tried to bring in Whedon, and that entire cast of the Justice League came out and said, no, we love working with Zack Snyder, and backed him. There hasn't been a single person come out and back Bo DeMaio when he was fired in March. Like, not a single writer, not a single executive, no one has come out and said, like, you've done the wrong thing. And that it's kind of a writing on the wall thing a little bit. Like, when that happens, it just kind of speaks for itself. And I think that's something you kind of have to keep in mind in the background a little bit with this, is that maybe there were more people in that room that wanted to see him go than not.
Sure.
Despite the massively creative thing that he put on screen and the fantastic thing that he was responsible for, maybe there was a lot more going on behind the scenes that were more problematic than have been out there.
Well, you bring up Whedon, and that's like another case and example. Like, if we can separate the art from the artist, like Whedon has like a catalog of great work, but now, we can't hold him in the same esteem that we can, but we can still, appreciate that work for what it was. Some of us can. I can. I won't speak for anyone else.
Yeah, I definitely can too. I generally think you can separate the art from the artist. It just gets tricky when you start supporting an artist who's still actively doing problematic behaviors.
Absolutely.
That's in my mind. If the artist is no longer doing those practical, it has lost their place of power or whatever, I don't mind as much still in consuming that art. like, for instance, if an artist is dead and we know they did terrible things, which like most dead artists did terrible things because there was a whole different time involved and people with that much power did terrible things. Yeah, so it's a whole thing. But I just hate this story. I hate the he said, she said it all, and I hate the, like, there's no way to know the truth. It's really hard to, like, because I can construct narratives based on both of these people's allegations that feel completely legitimate, you know? Like, sure, no one else came out to protect him, but, like, voice actors and animation writers have a lot less power than movie stars, you know? Like, maybe they didn't feel they had the leverage to come out. Whereas, like, James Gunn's celebrity friends are like, I'll get another job next week. You bring James Gunn back. You know, they have a lot more leverage. So I can see it both ways, and I hate this sort of, like, especially, I really hate the sort of just, like, implied egregious behavior. Well, stated egregious behavior, but no real allegations, because it just, like, what is egregious about it? We talked about the MCU guys, like, maybe, you know, he's posting this content, and some people have said, like, that's why he lost the credits, or he said that. And it's possible there's nothing egregious about the content, but maybe it's egregious, you know, use of their copyright. You know what I mean? Like the fact that egregious can be used so many different ways. And then, like, there's always this implied nature that it's probably sexual misconduct, and that's been being said too, but not by any official channels. So it just feels like either side could be, like, poisoning the well with falsehoods or whatever. And I just hate the not knowing, and I don't like to come down on either side, because until more comes out and more is clear, it's just hard. Hate these kinds of stories.
What an unreasonable take. How dare you?
We'll just have to give this one time. You know, I'd say that internal investigation, it'll...
Remember back when it happened, I said there is more to this story, you guys.
Yes,
Just give it time. This time next year, we'll know a lot more than we do now, I'm sure, about this situation.
Well, that's our main stories this week. We got a lightning round and a Spotify poll coming up after the break. But first, let me tell you guys about our Patreon. Patreon.com/Multiverse Newscast. You can get those tangent talks, like when I got rid of the Acolyte for good. You can find out the source of that. You know, you try as a journalist to never become a part of the story, but sometimes you can't help it.
Calling ourselves journalists, are we now? Bold claim, Cotton.
Move over, Anderson Cooper.
That's right. Get those beautiful blue eyes out of here.
You rocking the gray? Yeah. Move over, Anderson Cooper.
Yeah. All right, well, we will be back right after this break. Patreon.com/Multiverse Newscast. Go over there, subscribe, get the tangent talks, and give us money. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Multiverse News. We like to talk about our Spotify poll from last week when we come back from the break here. We asked, which Marvel live-action show are you most excited for? 10.7% of you said Ironheart. 25% of you said Agatha All Along, and a resounding 64% of you said Daredevil. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do your desires line up with the audience?
I think it's character, like, popularity for sure. And then I think we don't know enough about the Ironheart series for people to be excited. So I don't think that's a knock on Ironheart necessarily. It's just that we don't have a lot of information about it.
The existence of the Netflix series is important information here too. You know, a lot of people love that Netflix series, and they're excited to see those actors return and reprise their roles. So there's probably a lot of hype around it for that reason.
Yeah, I got it. I think Daredevil's the top for me too. On this, just like the majority of our audience.
Yeah, my ranking falls in line as well. Daredevil first, Agatha, and then Ironheart. But I am pleasantly surprised to see that Agatha wasn't completely washed out, because I heard, again, another vocal minority, the fact that this was a musical, again, focusing on a prominently female cast, that there might have been some people that weren't entirely interested in it. But as far as our audience goes, at least there's a strong contingent there, myself included.
Yeah, same. And I think Ironheart, as you said, Jay, we don't know much. I think as we get more information and we get a trailer and things like that, the hype will build, and we'll get into it. Let's move on to our lightning round. This is where I'm going to read a story, and the panelists all can chime in using their names. You shout your name out. First one to do that gets to claim the story and respond to it, and then we're going to keep on moving. But once per lightning round, you get a rebuttal. Up first, Camilla Mendez, who starred in the CW series Riverdale, will play Tila in Amazon MGM Studios and Mattel Films' live-action take on Masters of the Universe, and will star opposite Nicholas Galitzine, who is playing the role of He-Man.
Scotty, this one works for me on multiple levels. I wasn't a Riverside diehard, but I did watch that first season in the heyday of the DC universe being on CW. I was just kind of bought in, and the first season was okay. It was cool. I did see enough from Camilla Mendez's performance that I was more Team Veronica than I was Team Betty. But again, I didn't stick with the show throughout its duration. But yeah, as far as He-Man goes, it's not a show that I grew up on by any stretch of the imagination. I certainly am familiar with it, but on Animation Deliberation, when Kevin Smith did his revival, Masters of the Universe Revelation, on Netflix a couple of years ago, I actually went back and watched like 10 episodes or so of like that original series, and gained a newfound appreciation for it and the impact that it's had. But so I mentioned my familiarity with Camila Mendez, but then Nicholas Galitzine here, he's definitely an up-and-comer. He was on a Netflix movie that focused on a gay couple that the name is escaping me, but I know it got some positive traction and a lot of eyeballs on it. But I recognize him from Bottoms. And for any of our long-term listeners, if you recall when we did our top 5 movies and TV shows from 2023, Bottoms got a honorable mention from me, and Nicholas Galitzine, this was the first place I saw him, and he was absolutely hilarious. So I'm hoping that with those kind of sensibilities, that's the direction that they lean into with a He-Man film. Like it obviously should not ape Thor Ragnarok, but I think that's a pretty good like pastiche to kind of model after. And I think, with the talent involved here, if that's the direction they're going, I think this could wind up being a movie that might surprise a lot of people in terms of universal appeal.
Marvel Comics announced a Kahori Reshaper of Worlds one-shot that will bring the character from Season 2 of What If into comics.
Haley. Yeah, this is great. I saw this early on Monday, and a really cool one-shot to come out in November for Native American Heritage Month. And I think that was a character that resonated with people being fresh and new in the show. So I hope that people are excited about that and either wait for it on Marvel Unlimited or go out and buy it in November.
Tiny, but I'm super excited for it. I loved Kahori, and I loved her episode, both of her episodes that she was in.
Yeah. Same, and I'll use my rebuttal too. I think I love this kind of stuff. I think of Harley Quinn, another character that was created for animation that was sort of retconned into comics and has now become a much beloved character all over DC, and has their own spin-off shows and movies and everything now. And I think that's just really, really cool. And I think Kahori has that similar potential. And it makes me wonder, I know she's in a different universe in What If, but she's already jumping around the multiverse. Could she join the 616 Marvel Comics universe at some point, and have that character have a cool history in their own universe and join up? I could totally see them doing something like that, and then living in the world of it's just something special about an adaptation of a different medium, creating something that the original medium takes on and incorporates into the original pastiche of the artwork. I just think that's really, really cool. Writer-director David O. Russell has cast Nicolas Cage to star in the lead role for Madden, the Amazon MGM Studios drama about the life of NFL coaching and broadcasting legend John Madden.
Jay, this is fascinating. Nick Cage, if you told me, we got a Madden movie coming out, who's playing John Madden, and I get 45 guesses to figure it out. I don't know if Nick Cage would be one of those, but man, I'm totally here for late career Nick Cage stage of life. He's in Long Legs playing this creepy serial killer. He's in Spider Noir. He's now going to be Madden, John Madden. It's a fascinating career arc that we're witnessing for Nicolas Cage. And ultimately, when we read about this film that's coming up, it gets interesting. It seems like it's going to really focus on the development of the Madden video game, but it'll also sort of bring in like Madden as a person, who's an interesting person in his own right, but kind of like what Air did, the movie Air, whenever it talked about like the development of like Nike and like Nike shoes around Jordan, and like Michael Jordan was in that to a degree, but really that was not the focus of the story. The focus of the story was the creation of the shoe. It kind of seems like this movie's taking a similar route. It's like the story is the creation of the gaming franchise, but that like Madden will sort of be obviously part of that story. So seems interesting. I mean, I'm definitely going to watch it.
Interesting.
You know, EA is happy to collect all those residuals.
Oh, yeah.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
It's in the game.
I can't lie. I've been playing college football, NCAA college football, so I've just been giving them my money. So,
Will and Grace creators Max Muchnick and David Cohan, with executive producer Ryan Murphy, are bringing Hulu a comedy about chosen family, starring executive producers Nathan Lane and Matt Bomer, as well as Nathan Lee Graham and Linda Lavin. This series follows three gay best friends who, after an unexpected death, decide to embrace their golden years together in sun-soaked Palm Springs, where the wealthiest one lives with his mother.
Haley. So I shoehorned this in because Will and Grace is my all-time favorite TV show. But I really love these creators. Ryan Murphy, not only does he make it a point to emphasize in his projects the LGBTQ community, he also makes it a point to cast quote-unquote older actresses in his projects, which is something that I find very admirable, because it's long storied in Hollywood that if you're a man, you can act till you're 80, but if you're a woman, you know, if you're old, you're the witch or the crone or the grandmother. And so I really respect Ryan Murphy for doing that. And then Matt Muchnick and David Cohen, of course, they created my favorite show of all time. So I'm looking forward to this, and it's got star power behind it with Nathan Lane and Matt Bomer, as well as those three producers and creators. So this looks fun.
I couldn't help but think when reading about the story, Matt Bomer just made Fellow Travelers, which was an amazing piece of work. But there's a story beat where like someone important has died, and Matt Bomer's character goes to a like resort in Florida and lives sort of like a wild lifestyle in the gay community there, and it's a really dark time in the story for him. And it's like, this sounds like the same actor and sort of the same like exposition, but a completely different tone and completely different creators. And I think that's kind of an interesting like weird connection there. Almost feels like it's not like you want to be like, being in the gay community in like a resort town doesn't have to be a weird dark time. It can also be a fun, exciting time. Let's tell a different story here. I kind of like it. Apple TV Plus has renewed Dark Matter, starring Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Connelly, for a second season.
Oh, Jay? I was just going to say it's a no-brainer. This is a great show if you're interested in checking out that Apple TV Plus subscription. We talk about all the time on here, like we love Apple TV Plus here on Multiverse News. I mean, they've got some really killer content over there, and this is one of their shows that really took off and people love, and I started watching and I love as well. So it just seems like a no-brainer, and if you're looking for something to watch, like, cannot recommend Dark Matter enough. It's great.
Derek Connolly, a franchise writer with a resume that includes the Jurassic World movies, has been tapped to write a live-action adaptation of the Sega video game Eternal Champions for Skydance.
Jay, man, this is the new age of Hollywood. Like, let's just dig through our IPs. Like, what games do we have out there? Doesn't matter how old they are. Let's get a live-action adaptation made of them and try to get people who played them as kids to come out and see the movie. It just seems to kind of be the trend that we're witnessing. So this is definitely not the last one that we'll probably talk about here.
Did anybody play Eternal Champions?
I have to do some research to see if it's the game that I'm thinking it is, but if it is, I remember my dad playing it and me looking at the game art and being like fascinated by it, but not being able to play it. And
is that the game art?
I'm looking right now.
Because
I don't think so. I don't think
funny.
so.
It's funny you say that. There's the game art for Eternal Champions. I looked it up earlier because I was like, I'd never even heard of this game. And then I looked it up and I saw the game art and I was like, oh, I remember this game art though.
Okay.
So it's funny you say that. Yeah. Anyway, Puck Magazine's Matt Belloni probably. Not Baloney. It can't be Baloney.
It's got to be. It's definitely Baloney.
My Baloney has a first name. It's Matt. Matt Baloney is...
Sounds right to me.
Sorry. Puck Magazine's Matt Belloni is reporting that Mattel, who had been shopping a Barbie animated film, has entered talks with Illumination to produce it, and Warner Brothers and Greta Gerwig are reportedly not thrilled about it.
There are plenty of Barbie animated movies. What are we acting like this is something new?
Oh, no. This is, so you wanted to buy an IP, but you decided to go cheap and not buy the animated rights. That's what Warner Brothers did. They bought the rights for Barbie, but they did not buy the animated rights for Barbie. And so now Mattel, seeing that Barbie made over $1 billion and is a cash cow, is like, well, we obviously need to make an animated movie about this. Well, Greta Gerwig doesn't want to do that. Margot Robbie doesn't want to do that. But Mattel wants to do that. So they have been going around, according to this report, they've been going around Hollywood shopping this movie as an animated movie, an animated Barbie movie, and trying to kind of, and again, like Greta's not involved, Margot's not involved.
Like
but
a
it's
remake of the live action movie?
No.
Because like they make all these other animated
but just
Barbie
like,
movies.
no, not like that, but like, not same characters because they can't really do that, but just like still a Barbie animated movie to try to coast off the coattails of Barbie. And Illumination, of course, was like, we'll do it. Because, they're out there doing the Minions movies and Super Mario Brothers and whatever. And they're like, we'll do it. So, yeah, I mean, buy the animated rights next time. You just get the whole thing. Just swipe the credit card, do the whole thing. Don't fall into, let this be a lesson to you, Hollywood. Don't skimp on the animated rights.
Predicting a future segment on this show, Chris Pratt has been cast as the voice of Barbie.
No, but he will 100% be Ken. He will be Ken. Like you just said that, and I got vibes from the future of the universe.
Yep.
Like telling me like he will be Ken.
Hey Barbie, it's me.
It's just the same voice that he does for Garfield and
Which
Mario.
Is just like any dude's voice.
Yep. He's this generation's any dude.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Man.
Jess says Barbie Minion crossover 2026. That's so cursed. Do it.
All right. Up next, Amazon's Prime Video has canceled My Lady Jane, the period drama which combined romance and alternate world fantasy. The cancellation comes about 7 weeks after Prime Video released all 8 episodes of the show's first and now only season.
Haley, I watched the first episode. I would have thought this would be right up my alley, but I didn't like it. I had tried to read the book as well, and I couldn't get into it, so it just really didn't hit for me. I saw like a faction of my algorithm that it did, so they'll be bummed. But yeah, it had a really nice cast. Like Dominic Cooper was in this show randomly, and some other big names. But yeah, for me, it wasn't it. I thought it was maybe missing its mark on its audience, perhaps.
Netflix romantic drama Bridgerton has cast Yaren Ha as Benedict Bridgerton's love interest for season 4. Yaren Ha is best known for starring in Paramount Plus's video game adaptation Halo, and will also star in the upcoming Max series Dune Prophecy.
Haley? Benedict's story is really fun. So I don't know Yaren Ha, but good for her. Bridgerton is huge.
I've only seen her in Halo, but she did the absolute best she could with the subpar material she was given in the Halo series. So we'll see.
We'll watch her in Dune Prophecy and we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The father-son duo of Eugene Levy and Dan Levy will officially host this year's Emmys, which takes place on Sunday, September 15th, live on ABC.
Scotty and I will be very self-conscious about my weak eyebrow game the following weeks.
They do
Between
have
the two of
strong
them,
eyebrows.
they got some strong eyebrows, but I don't have anything profound to say, so somebody else, please.
I think it'll be fun. I think they're
it's
both really
it's
smart, great writers. So
yeah,
it'll
it's
be
a
good.
slam dunk.
Yeah.
And Tiny Butt, Jay Scotty, your eyebrows are great.
Oh,
Oh,
you
you
got
got
green
nothing.
eyebrows.
You got nothing to run
Look
from.
over there. Give me a little like raise. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Look
you
at
got
that.
strong eyebrows too.
Those are
so
strong
you're just in
eyebrows.
They're
that
very
mix.
dark. Very dark. Yeah.
Look at my eyebrows. You can't see my eyebrows in this lighting. No, they just
You guys
disappear.
can get the It Cosmetics fill-in pencil, and it does wonders for you. I'll tell you.
Okay. Send me a link, Haley. Send me a link.
All right.
We might get sponsored on the podcast.
The before and after.
Call us up if you're with I don't know what's a
I use it every day.
Maybelline or whatever. Give us a call.
maybe she's born with it. It's Maybelline.
Variety has learned exclusively that Eric Heiserer, best known for his writing on Arrival and Bird Box, has entered into a first-look television deal with Legendary Entertainment. The first project to be developed under the deal will be a Pacific Rim origin story series.
Jay, didn't know we were still doing the Pacific Rim thing, but I guess big smashy monsters are all the rage in Hollywood right now, as evidenced by Godzilla and Kong and the Monsterverse. So, to me, that's the big story here, is that that franchise is undergoing a transformation, and they're trying to bring it back, which is interesting.
Tiny Butt, if you're going to do a movie that details what happens to a world when like Lovecraftian monsters come to it and you have to build defenses, like Arrival and Bird Box feel like a really good place to go for that. Like it just feels like exactly what those movies kind of detailed, and I think that's a really good call, I guess, and both good. A new report says Sony may not renew their overall deal with Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Lord and Miller have been behind the very successful Spider-Verse animated films at Sony.
Scotty.
Haley.
Go ahead, Haley.
Well, I just thought, so this is weird. This is something that comicbook.com is doing a lot, which is like a new report. A new report from who? Comicbook.com. Like, that's extremely
Source.
vague.
Trust me, bro.
First of all,
Source.
like, we
I
are
made
not
it up.
citing sources very well these days. So take it with a grain of salt. This to me reads like, okay, so they're not redoing their overall deal with them. We don't know exactly what that entailed. I don't really see Sony being so stupid that they would walk away from them doing more Spider-Verse movies. So perhaps the contracts will only be for things like that. The article did talk about that there's been budgetary disputes with some of the shows and stuff. And so, we don't know, again, what we don't know. And this, quote, report from the Netherworld, because they didn't say where it was from, was not super specific. So I hope that this just doesn't mean the end of the Spider-Verse films. And I don't think it does.
No way. They're definitely finishing those.
No way.
Oh,
But everybody's just on it tonight.
The Boys star Claudia.
Nervous laughter trails off. Save me, someone.
I'm stuck here with these three buffoons.
I blinked twice. I've been in this box forever.
I'm gonna blink my address and Morse code. I need you to call the SWAT team.
I'm not letting the internet have my address. No way, Jose.
The Boys star Claudia Dowmett has joined the cast of Atomic Monster and Blumhouse's upcoming Megan spinoff, Soulmate.
Scotty, everything that I'm hearing about this Megan spinoff Soulmate, I like everything I'm hearing about it. So hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll see some footage or a trailer, and I can be that much more excited about the future of killer AI dolls, what have you.
Wes Ball is set to direct an adaptation of Rykon's popular video game Ruiner for Universal Pictures, with Michael Arlen Ross on board to pen a screenplay.
Scotty, I'm not overly familiar with the video game Ruiner. I tried to do some cursory research to get a little bit of a vibe for it, but what I find especially interesting is that Wes Ball, once upon a time, I want to say circa 2010, he did a short film called Ruin, and if you go, it's available for free on YouTube, so go check it out. But if you watch that, you can see the obvious influence that film had, not only on the Maze Runner, but his first entry in the Planet of the Apes, the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. He just loves a cityscape covered in overgrowth. So just thinking that he's going from ruin to ruiner. Again, don't know that much about the game, but hopefully this will be one of the better video game adaptations, because we're coming off of a pretty stanky one with Borderlands.
That thing will be available to buy on
Tomorrow.
your TV probably by the time you're listening to this. Please give us any money for it. Like literally anything.
pay what you want.
Shekels, sir, please.
alms for the poor.
All right. Well, that's all the news we got tonight, guys. Let's go around and tell people where they can find your stuff online. J. Scotty Sinclair.
Yeah, I'm happy to announce that Animation Deliberation made its return recently. So we've had, every week we've put out a new episode. So most recently, Zuhair and I just got together to discuss our reception to Batman Caped Crusader Season 1 on Amazon Prime. So that was a fun conversation, and it's just great to be back in the saddle there. And then on Bill and Ashley's Terror Theater, we've been talking about Alien Romulus quite a bit, but they just put out their coverage for Alien, and then next week you should see the coverage for Alien Romulus. So I was very grateful and excited to be a part of that conversation. Check it out wherever you get your podcast.
Should I watch Caped Crusader?
I'd say it's worth a watch. Go in with, reasonable expectations. I think if you're a diehard fan of the animated series and just a big fan of Batman, it has a lot to offer. It does have some swings for the fences that I'd say 75% of them worked for me.
It's a slow burn.
It is a slow burn. That's fair.
But it's good.
I watched the first episode, and I was like, this feels like an episode of the animated series, and I don't know that it feels like it's going to tread new ground. But the fact that you say there's swings for the fences, that makes me want to
The second episode ended up being my favorite of the entire series.
Okay, maybe I'll check that out. And Haley, where can people find you online?
Over at Source Pages, Brian and I are doing a couple weeks of Secret Wars coverage. If you don't know, we're reading the entire 2015 Secret Wars Everything comics, which is all the tie-ins, and it's going to be crazy and take us probably until 2027 when the movie comes out, which is great. So this week was 1602 Witch Hunter Angela, and it was very fun. We are going to be doing a giveaway contest for a book, so listen to our episode if you want to know what that's about, or follow our socials. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where I'm going to be posting those details Friday. And then Ashley and I did Hate Watch last Friday, which is on twitch.tv/strandedpandatv if you want to watch it. We watched the Netflix movie Mother of the Bride, and we had feelings about it. So
is that connected to Father of the Bride?
No.
Oh,
it's terrible.
Okay. No.
All right.
It has Brooke Shields in it.
Okay.
That's all I'll give you.
Okay.
And Jay Sisson.
Yeah, well, you can find me weekly at Commute the Podcast, where you can learn a few interesting things in about the 20-minute show. Also remember that our show here, Multiverse News, does have social media profiles. So if you're not following us on Twitter, we're at MV Newscast. So please go do that. Even if you're not active over there, it still helps. And same with Instagram. We're at Multiverse Newscast on Instagram. So please go give us a follow over there and help us out. And in addition to the Patreon and giving us a 5-star review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, following us on the socials can really help boost our online presence too. So please go give us some love over there.
Absolutely. And I do the MCU cast, Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. And if you dig that and you live in the Southeast, we are going to be doing our only ever live show at Dragon Con as a panel this year, our first ever anyway, hopefully not only ever. So come join us. It's our 10th anniversary, so we're probably going to be doing a few episodes for 10th anniversary fun, and join us over at Dragon Con, where I think 7 p.m. on Friday. So if you're in the area, they do daily passes, or you can come for the whole time. Jay Scotty's going to be there.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so we're going to be over there hanging out at Dragon Con, partying, but also doing our 10th anniversary show. So come hang out and go to listen to the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. You got a couple weeks to catch up if you haven't heard it before. There's 1,000 episodes. Just go buzz through it and see us at the 10th anniversary. And we'll be back on Multiverse News next week. Thanks for joining us. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
Hey, thanks for listening to Multiverse News, or watching it, or whatever you're doing. Eyeballs or ear holes, whichever thing. We do this show every week, and we appreciate you listening. StrandedPanda.com is where you can find all of our podcasts. And thank you for listening. Check us out wherever you get podcasts. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the little bell icon, whatever you have on whatever service you're doing. Rate us, like us. We're really thirsty. That's what I'm saying.